Hey all, this week I am back in Chicago and I am driving the full-size Toyota Tundra. And this is an SR5 model with the TRD Rally Package. So this is about a $62,000 vehicle. And rather than go into a whole long drive review of this vehicle, I spent a lot of time on the highway and playing around with the technology. So I'm just going to do a very quick tech check of this pickup truck. If you want the first look review or some more detailed information about the Toyota Tundra, I will link that below on the Pickup Truck Plus SUV Talk YouTube channel. For this week, I'm just doing a tech check. So let's take a closer look at this week's car du jour, truck du jour, the Toyota Tundra SR5. All right, because it is getting cold and it is starting to snow, we're only going to look at one tech fixture on the exterior of the vehicle, and that is going to be the power tailgate. So you do have the ability to drop the tailgate with just a push of the button on the tailgate, but you can also put it back up with the key fob. So that's really cool. And you can also put it down with the press of the key fob. So button, key fob. But here's what I think is really cool, and the feature that I really wanted to talk about. If you've taken stuff out of the truck bed and yeah, your hands are full, you can simply go like that and kind of give it a knee up to then put the tailgate back up. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool and definitely helpful. And yes, I know this is not the only pickup truck that has it, but I'm just saying this is an SR5 model and it has that. It's part of a package, but it has that. Moving to the inside of the Tundra, you actually have a lot going on from a tech perspective, especially considering the fact that this is supposed to be an SR5 model, which is on the more entry-level side of the spectrum. So you power it up, you do see that you have analog gauges, but you have this little screen right here that had a little intro graphic that popped up, and you have this incredibly large infotainment screen. So this is equipped with Toyota's newest infotainment system, which has your menu here for your navigation, your music, your phone connectivity, your vehicle settings, and then just your all-around settings. Now, I will point out that when you do connect a phone, you do have access to wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but with some of the updates for Apple CarPlay, you can no longer record video and record video with your phone and then show Apple CarPlay at the same time. Does very bad things to your audio. So we'll just show a couple of pictures here of what it looks like. It fills out the screen really well from an app perspective, and I always go into the background and change the wallpaper so that it matches the vehicle. So it's maybe not the wallpaper that you are used to, but I changed the wallpaper. I like the icon size. I like the way Apple Maps appears on here. And I will point out that when you do engage directions on Apple Maps, the directionals will pop into this little center screen there and kind of give you the go this way, go that way. So the analog gauges don't bother me. I actually kind of like the analog gauges. They work for me, especially on a truck. And the little infotainment screen there, a little info screen there doesn't bother me either. I am only averaging 16.6 miles per gallon, and I have driven this over about 500 miles. So that is mostly highway driving there. That is mostly highway driving. Okay, so let's go back to the infotainment screen a little bit. And one of the things I want to show you is you do have a camera view. And this is the bougie up-level camera that you can get on some Toyota vehicles where it shows you the around view monitor. And I do want to point out this, even though this is an SR5 trim, this does have, I think they're calling it the TRD Rally Package, which is like a $9,000 package, which includes a lot of the up-level features you're seeing on this vehicle. And, it also includes like the retro themed graphics, the TRD, stripe, the TRD start button, and your little TRD fixture on the steering wheel. So this is essentially a $62,000 vehicle. This is not a cheap Tundra. Not that there is a cheap Tundra these days, but this is not bad. So you do have the around view camera that is available with this, and when you put the vehicle into reverse, you do get the 360-degree camera here, and then the backup camera with the dynamic guidelines. We see this on a lot of Toyota vehicles. I really, really like the camera display on Toyotas, especially when they use the around view and the high def, because it looks really good, and it does a good job of showing you what's going on. And then when you go to drive, okay, the camera turns off, but then you can pop it back on. And then when you go to reverse, like if you're parallel parking, once you hit the camera button, it stays on. I wish there was a little bit of a delay there that it would just stay on automatically, but this is what you have. So I like the fact that you also have different angles and views that you can select, and it's dependent, well, not even necessarily dependent on whether you are in reverse or drive. And so that would be if you were hooking up a trailer. Yeah, but so you've got a lot of good options going on. Ooh, you even got a bed camera. I like that. So I don't know. I love camera views, and this has a lot of them, and it's really clear. And while I haven't backed into my garage, because in case you were wondering, this did not fit in my garage, I have been driving it at night, and so you do see this in the dark, and this is still a bright camera view. So that gets a thumbs up in my book. Now, in terms of what else is going on, we'll take a quick look at some of the steering wheel controls. These do have the more traditional buttons that you would expect on a vehicle, and so you don't really have to guess what's going on here. You do have adaptive cruise control. This sets the distance, the follow distance that you would have between you and the vehicle in front of you. This is your lane trace assist that you can turn on or off. This is pretty self-explanatory. This goes back to your audio controls. So this is kind of like your tuning, and this is your mode. And then you've got more audio controls over here. You can change what appears in the center of the display by kind of scrolling up through this. Now, you don't really have a lot of options, but you can kind of scroll up, and then if you press these right here, you can scroll over, and it gives you a few more options and directions in terms of what you are looking at. Now, this screen specifically allows you to turn on and off some of the drive assist systems, the nannies as people like to call them. So this would be your blind spot monitoring, park assist sensors, rear cross traffic alert. And so it allows you to go in and adjust some of your vehicle settings and your safety settings. I typically tend to leave all of this stuff on, but I know there are a lot of people out there that don't like the safety systems. So if you don't like the safety systems, you just turn them off by toggling through this center screen here. Now, while this does have a lot of high-tech features on it, you will see the lack of some features, including there is no moonroof or sunroof, and you don't have that rear camera mirror. Like a lot of vehicles are starting to have like rear camera mirrors where this becomes a digital display. This doesn't have that, but you do have the ability to open the rear glass at the back, and the whole thing opens up. So that's kind of cool. But in terms of other tech features, yeah, that's about what you got going on here. Outside of that, in the tech world, you do have some drive modes available. Not too many. You've got eco, normal, sport. I've been keeping it essentially in normal. And then you have your tow haul capability. You have your multi-terrain select and your crawl control. You also have, I've been keeping this in 2 high, but you have 4 high, 4 low, depending on your terrain and your off-roading or your weather situation. Finally, I do just want to go over your audio just a little bit, because I don't know why, but the audio system is just a little bit weird in Toyota systems. And so you enable the audio and you can go into FM radio, AM radio, Sirius XM radio. So, and then you've got sources where you can do Apple Music, Amazon Music. You can go into an iPhone. But, you know, if you're going to be doing Apple CarPlay, a lot of that is irrelevant. But you have your favorites capability here, and I will point out, I am not Hair Nation. My husband was in the car with me. I'm more of a hits one kind of person, and I don't know who was setting these favorites before me, but yeah, that is not my selection. So recommended for me based on my preferences, none of those. So at any rate, one of the things I find that's a little bit weird about this audio system is I have a hard time figuring out how you just scroll through the stations. I think you have to select a station and then you can kind of go plus and minus that way. But there is no, like that I found in this system, no easy way to just scroll through all of the XM radio stations. You have to go to music, and then you have to go to pop or rock or hip hop or dance or whatever, and then it will show you the things that it thinks are pop, and then you can select what you want to listen to, or hip hop or rock. And I don't know. I would just want something that I can scroll through that shows all the things. I don't want to have to tap, 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 tap through things. So the way this is set up is a little bit weird, but as an owner, you're going to go in and you're going to select a station, and then you're going to select the favorite. So if you see the heart right here, that means this has been selected as a favorite. And if you want to deselect a favorite, you can just remove the heart. And so that part is easy and relatively intuitive, but that takes a long time to go away. So you can kind of scroll through and decide what you want to keep as favorites and what you want to get rid of, and you can get this set up, and then it becomes intuitive. But what I do like about this is if you are an AM radio listener, you can actually also go into you know, the radio station there and select that as a favorite. And then when you go into your overall favorites, like say I'm still in Sirius radio. I don't know. At any rate, you go into your favorites here, and then you can see, you can have your AM radio as well as your Sirius XM radio, and you can also add your FM radio stations. And so you can have all of your favorites in one place, and that's going to make a lot of sense for an owner. So this is a little bit weird as you're trying to set up the system, but once you get the system set up for you, it makes a lot of sense, and it's very easy to work through, especially if you're just going through your favorites. All right, before I close out this review, I do want to give some brief driving impressions, because it's one thing to drive this vehicle during a first drive event where you're doing a carefully curated drive, and it's quite another to bring the vehicle into your environment and your life, and you know, in your city, which in my case happens to be Chicago, and this is a full-size truck. And overall, I have been really surprisingly impressed with how well this is done in a city. It drives a lot smaller than I remembered it from the first drive. And granted, I'm driving it day after day after day. I'm pulling into parking lots. I'm parallel parking it, which means that I'm getting really, really familiar with the vehicle. And it just becomes much more intuitive and easier to manage every day. So while I wouldn't necessarily choose to drive a full-size truck in Chicago, if I have to, I would say this is not a bad option. It doesn't fit in my garage, but because of the camera situation, it's really easy to parallel park. And I also found it particularly easy to manage in terms of staying in your lane and being able to see the bike lanes from the big side mirrors on the side of the vehicle. Now, one of the things that I wish this had is the ability to turn the camera on and keep it on, and like for the front view or the rear view, or even the split side view, to be able to better see bike lanes when you're driving in the city. You can turn on the camera, but it doesn't stay on for very long and it doesn't give you the view that you want it to have. So I do wish, like, I believe both, well, I know GMC and Chevy, but I think also Ford allow you to turn that camera on and keep it on at higher speeds, and it gives you, you know, the side views or the front views that you want to make sure you're staying in the lane lines in a city situation. This does not have that. So that's a one tech feature I wish this had that it does not have. But again, the more I've been driving the vehicle, the more comfortable it gets, and you know, the better I have been able to understand the proportions of the vehicle, which again makes it easier to drive in a city situation. Now, 400 miles on the highway to and from Indianapolis from Chicago, and I did find this to be pretty comfortable on the highway. It's quiet, and the seats are reasonably comfortable. Although I will say, my husband, after he got out of the vehicle on our way back, he was just like, ooh, ah. He was feeling a little stiff. So, but I find them to be relatively comfortable, more comfortable than some. In terms of the overall driving position, the only thing that I think is a little bit tough to manage are the side mirrors. They're really big, which is great when you're trying to check your blind spots, but they also create a pretty big blind spot when you are stopped at a four-way stop and you're trying to see if anybody's in the crosswalk. I have to say, I really like the Ford F-150 and the kick down windows because it lowers those side mirrors and allows you to see over them. So that is just a little bit unmanageable in terms of driving position, but everything else is really good. Now, one more thing I should mention as I'm getting ready to merge onto the highway is this does have the turbocharged V6 engine, which is really a nice amount of power for this truck, and it has plenty of get up and go for the merging and highway situations. And since I am on the more aggressive side of the spectrum, I will say it was plenty of power for me. All right, that is what I have for you today in the Toyota Tundra SR5. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button below, and I will see you next time with a new car or truck du jour.